I always like to go ahead and make way for our drip line before I get started with the project. So I make way for everything here. Going to dig out a little bit around the plants and just make sure we've got place for our pipe to go down so that we can properly secure everything. So the brass piece we're taking off here is a vacuum breaker, and you only can use these in non-constant pressure situations. So we want to use that to prevent water from being sucked back into our drinking water supply. We just have to put it after the timer so that it's not under constant pressure. So here we're going to put on a brass Y. There's plastic versions of this. I like to use the brass one just so that it's a little stronger right there at the point to where things usually break when you're tugging on a garden hose or whatever. So we're going to put on our pressure reducer first because we have 90 psi in that faucet. So we want to bring it down as quickly as possible. And now we're going to put on the timer. And we're going to put all this stuff on hand tight as best we can. Now remember, you don't have to crank this thing down. They've got gaskets in there. So we're going to put everything on and then turn it on. And if it leaks a little bit, then we can see what fitting to tighten a little bit more. And these, we're going to put the vacuum breaker back on after the timer so that it's not under constant pressure. But that's a little set screw on the side that's generally for use in steel or brass threads so that hold it in place, but you definitely don't need to use that on plastic threads. And I should have taken that yellow guide wire down there. That holds a kind of a shelter in place. The winds come pretty strong along the back side of this property. But here we see the direction of flow for our filter. We've got the fitting that I'm going to go ahead and install on the back side, and that adapts from hose threads to our 1/2-inch delivery tubing. Going to screw it on. Some people would say that this filter is upside down and that it's only meant to be installed one way, and I don't really see any evidence that it affects the way it works. These filters work under pressure, so it's going to push the water through the filter no matter what orientation you have it in. Just make sure you've got it in the right direction of flow orientation. So now we've got it mounted there, and it's got our adapter, our female hose thread to 1/2-inch drip tubing. And we're going to go ahead and just get this roll prepped. I'm going to start our process of laying out our delivery tubing here, our 1/2-inch solid tubing. And these things, you got to push them on and get it up over its little hump there. Sorry, my shoulder kind of obscures the view on that, but you can see that just what I'm doing is forcing that on there all the way up to the stop. If you can get it, if not, just make sure it's got enough to grab a hold of with its barb there. And then there's a little collar that you screw down on it that holds the pipe in place, and these are super solid fittings. You generally don't have to worry about these once you get them set up. So we're going to go ahead and tuck our delivery tubing in behind here, and once we get it in place, then we'll come back in and put our drippers and our fittings in and all that. Right, so I think I misplaced the easy lock fitting I had for the elbow here, so I'm going to use something different that I had on my truck, which is a Rainbird fitting. DripWorks, I hope you don't hate me for it, but just needed to go ahead and get the video made with what I had there instead of ordering another one. But we'll go ahead and get this corner done and rolled on out. I like to go ahead and stake things down as I go. It just helps with rolling your pipe out and keeps it from bouncing all over the place. And of course we'll go back in and we'll stake things down a little bit better as we go. Okay, now if you remember from the previous video, I showed where the root ball was on these plants that we're transplanting into the ground, and I'm going to put a dripper about 5 inches apart on each side of that root ball, which will help not only get the root ball wet but also the ground around it, so that we just don't suck the water right back out of the root ball itself. Alright, now generally the colored part is the barb that goes into the pipe on this product and pretty much all the other products here. So once I get this in place, I'm going to go ahead and stake it down. Now we're going to go on over here to our parsley and do the same thing and put 2 drippers 5 inches apart. Alright, now we're going to get over here, and if you saw the preparation video, the video I did on planning, you kind of saw the setup on how this works here. I'm just going to, you know, put a coupling into the tubing and run some hose out, some 1/4 inch delivery tubing, and put 2 drippers on either side of the root ball like we did before. Let's see if we get a little bit better view there. Alright, and with the way I do this, now this one's going to go on across those little concrete pads and do the other plant over there, so I'm going to put a T on it so I can extend it on past. But now I'm going to build the little T part for this particular pepper plant here. So I'm going to measure these out to be about 2.5 inches, so that once I put them into a T, we'll have a 5-inch separation between the 2 drippers, basically the size of the new root ball that I've put in here when I transplanted these little veggie plants. Oops, went out of frame a little bit there. Excuse me for some of this. As you see, we're putting our drippers on the end of the little extensions on our T. And now we're going to connect that there. Some people would only put 1 dripper on there. I like to do 2. Alright. Now we're going to pull our spaghetti tube through here and hook it to the other side of our T to get over to our little tomato plant. And of course we're going to take our small sod staples or ground staples and go ahead and put one on there to hold it in place, so that when we're pulling on that and installing it, we're going to make sure everything stays in place. We're running our 1/4 inch over here to our tomato plant, just kind of getting that in place. And doing the same thing, cutting off about 2.5 inches or so for each side to make our T. And this is a good strategy as well if you're putting drippers into a big pot, that you'll want to separate it and put drippers on either side. Sometimes if you just put one in the center, after a while the water just goes straight down and doesn't dissipate out into the soil. If you've got like one of the heavy 2 gallon per minute drippers on there, it could do that. I have seen it to where it doesn't do a good job, so I like to split it apart as soon as it comes into the pot and run it to each side. Alright, let's see what we got here. Let's turn our pressure on. We're going to turn this zone on manually and first blow it out. Oh, I think I must have edited out the video showing it blowing the water out there, but I always turn it on and blow it out first and then put the cap back on the line. And now we're just checking all of our drippers to make sure everything's working. There we go. It's a little bit clearer shot here of these drippers. Stick on a little parsley plant. And our tomato plant, all of our drippers and everything is working good.